Welcome to the last video in the Every Bit Counts Challenge 2024 version. Let's get started. I actually cleaned out the freezer in the house for a change, and I found a whole bunch of these bagged fruits we got for smoothies and stuff, and they needed to be used up. So I'm going to make fruit leather. Obviously these dehydrator racks have holes through them so that you can get maximum airflow, but we need to stop that because it's going to be fairly liquid what we're putting on top of it. And as long as it's not too sticky, you could take it off the paper partway through the dehydrating process and then let it dry on the other side, but I left it on the paper the whole time. That's what we've always done, and it worked out. I'm actually having to use the food processor. I did not hand wash this. I put it in the dishwasher, so we're all good. If you'd like, you can add honey or maple syrup or anything to sweeten this. We didn't add anything. After that smoothie, you want to make a thin layer. I just do it to where it doesn't have holes in the layer. You don't want it to get crunchy and you don't want it to stay wet. But it should dehydrate even if it's on the thicker side. I kind of prefer it on the thicker side. You can actually do this in your oven, so your cookie sheet's going to be a lot bigger. So I can't give you a metric volume of fruit to put on there. You can look up recipes and see what they suggest. I just do it by eye, and I kind of know how thick to make it. Some of mine turned out a little bit crunchy, so it was a little bit too thin, usually the edges. I did look up a recipe that said if you're doing it in your oven, to do it on 150 or the lowest setting for about 6 to 8 hours. We had a whole lot of that mango, but I also had some berries that I was able to sneak in this first batch of fruit leather. We did 2 days of fruit leather. If you're doing berries, they're a little more sticky when they dehydrate. If you go too far in the dehydrating process, it'll get crunchy. So allow it to be a little sticky. It's kind of hard to tell when that sweet spot is. Also, typical me, I forgot to strain it. There's going to be a ton of seeds in this, so I would strain it through a sieve or whatever you have. You can eat the seeds, but it's just real seedy. Almost all of these projects were done after we were done farming for the day, so we're pretty tired. We put this on 210 for a few hours, and then as it got later in the night, we put it on 100, and then we completely stopped it. In the morning, I turned it back on, and this is how it turned out. You just have to keep an eye on it and keep dehydrating if it's not done yet. So most of them are done, but the ones at the top, the berry one, it's not. It's just a little too sticky. Maybe just a little bit longer. I just used my kitchen shears to put it into strips. Later on, I just cut it into 6 just big rectangles because I was going to vacuum seal it anyway. A lot of it will go on Derek's hunting trip with him, and it's easier to have portioned out vacuum sealed packages for him. If you want to get cutesy with it though, you can roll it up like this. Even when I made it in squares, I left the parchment paper on there in between because they'll stick together. And here it is, vacuum sealed, lightweight, and portioned out. This time of year, the hunting trip is the big focus of everything. This is actually caribou. Derek traded a guy for a caribou roast when he got his moose, so they could each have the different meats. A few years back, I found this deli slicer on one of those flash sales on Amazon, so it was really affordable. We make French dip sandwiches, Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. It's really convenient to have a slicer like this. You can use a knife yourself, but just like the deli slicer, you want it somewhat frozen so that way it doesn't jiggle out of the way of your knife or the blade or anything. It's really important when you make jerky to get all the fat and sinew out of your jerky pieces because it will spoil all your jerky. Also super important is to have a cleanup crew on hand. We have 3 of them, so our kitchen floor is pretty clean. This recipe again is coming to you from the Meat Eater's book. and I will link this recipe below if I can find it. This is called the mother of all jerky, and it started with brown sugar and soy sauce. If you like things really salty, then go ahead and put the full salt soy, but we would probably put low sodium soy in it. Next is pineapple juice. We just had some crushed pineapple he was straining the juice out of. Next, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. That's how my grandmama pronounces it. Next, some of this blasphemous crushed red pepper. He didn't want to use the stuff I get from my garden because it's a lot stronger than this grocery store stuff. So if you don't like it too spicy, don't use homegrown. In with a little bit of pepper, onion powder, honey, ginger, garlic. Why didn't he use mine? Then you give it a whisk and put the meat in so that marinade can get all around it. Don't let them all stick together in a big clump. You can do this in a Ziploc bag if you'd like. After we marinated it in the fridge for 24 hours, it was ready to dehydrate. You do have to dehydrate this till all the liquid is gone, otherwise it'll spoil. The way you get chewier or drier texture is the way you cut it, against the grain or with the grain, whatever is to your liking. This jerky went in on 170 for 4 to 7 hours. If it's not vacuum sealed, it needs to be in the refrigerator. Again, this is going on the hunting trip, so we relied on our chamber vac. The last thing I'm preserving is my garden, because in Texas we can do a fall garden, and that's exactly what these are. Lots of brassicas and onions. I do fall onions instead of spring onions. Lots of brassicas. I have way too many cabbage, but I just saw that Jessica on 3 Rivers Homestead froze cabbage, so I'm going to do that too. Blanch it and then freeze it. Have it ready for cabbage with bacon. It's delish. I have entirely too much Swiss chard, but if my spinach doesn't come up again like it didn't last year, I can use the Swiss chard for the same thing. That is my last preservation challenge project, and I will be planning these out September 15th or so. I get really excited, so it's probably September 15th. Okay, here is our pantry. This is actually only months old. It's in here with my dart frogs. And we got some Halloween decorations here. Back to the pantry. I'm pretending it's fall, but it's supposed to be, 89 today? It's actually raining right now. 58, the lowest 58 on Sunday and Monday. We don't have a pantry at all. In fact, we converted a coat closet into a pantry. I wanted to show you some of the things that went wrong and some of the things that went pretty well. Number 1 would be stevia beans. Put about 2 more slices of bacon than I normally do for the 8 jars that it makes, and 4 of them didn't seal. And that's because of that bacon grease coming through the seal. Number 2 would be the enchilada sauce. I'm not gonna say I won't ever do it again. It's so involved and gave me so little. We had one lid failure or whatever. I ran my finger over the edge of the jar just to make sure it wasn't damaged at all, and the jar seems fine. So it was just either I tightened it too much and it blew off because it couldn't escape like you're supposed to have it. Anyway, I haven't tasted this yet because Derek doesn't like enchiladas. So I'll have to try this and see if it's even worth it. Of course, you saw the bread explode.
That stuff expanded like crazy.
Kind of have to get to know the chamber vac and know what might leak through or might not work. The pumpkin butter, I said it in the video, I did end up putting that in the freezer. I really liked how some of the projects that were meant to be like stew turned into stew and then leftover potatoes, and then it kind of prompted me to use the rest of the potatoes we had, because lately we haven't been going through them as fast. The chili base, I'm excited about using that. It should make things a little bit easier. This is the first time I've done that. Everything's already measured out and you just dump it in and add the other ingredients. I did add how far I went in the ingredient list in the book, so I would know what to add. This fruit leather, we've made this in the past. I'm glad we made this. One time we made like a blackberry and it actually got like peppery, like spicy hot. Don't know how, but that was the weirdest thing. I don't remember waking up in the middle of the night adding peppers to it. I had another jar explode with broth in it. That jar was from the 1920s. I was really upset about that, so if you learn anything from that, don't use your proudest jars that are worth, quite a bit of money. I could go to the antique store and get a replacement, but to find it first. In the future, when Derek comes back from his hunting trip, he usually brings a bunch of apples from Arizona, and I make applesauce because my uncle needs it. And just other random preservation and canning projects. I've also thought about some craft projects, like this one, or that one, this one, or that one. It's kind of goes along with homesteading. Anyway, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share my video so that I have the motivation to keep making videos like this. I'm going to take the sweatshirt off because it's entirely too hot for that and go see if it's still raining. Thanks for watching. Oh my gosh, I'm too old to sit on the floor. We're going to be farting cabbage for a long time.